Welcome to Beyond the Game. My name is Gregan, and today I'm chatting with Wavepunk, known for their Rocket League commentary and hosting. Here, Deep End, you're in a studio in LA, go cast RLCS. Tell me what that was like for you guys.
It was very magical.
I want to know what to you makes a desk special.
What is the point of a desk? I think the natural answer people give is, well, it's to give context, it's to give stories, that's kind of the conceit of the desk. It's like when you watch it and you tune in, those are the characters they're playing. They're playing the analyst. I'm going to tell you with my expert opinion of what's about to happen here.
And that is about what happened at season 2 when you called me babe live on camera after I guest appeared on the desk. We'll explain a bit of context with this. So
you need to tell the story of how you ended up on the desk.
Yeah. So you'll notice this episode has been recorded online. It's our first online podcast. We wanted to see if we could get guests from outside of the London area and across the world. And this went really well with Wavepunk. So we'll be doing more podcasts online with your favorite guests. So let us know who you want to hear from next. And I hope you enjoy this conversation as we get to know Wavepunk beyond the game. Wavepunk.
Hello.
Caleb, I don't know how to... genuinely, I feel like you're a Caleb now to me, and you have been for a while.
I feel like it's been that way for a lot of people, in esports. When we first started to meet each other in person, it was so special to get to call each other gamer tags out loud and use these given nicknames that we had learned with each other. But then it's like the girlfriend thing in esports where Athena never calls Rizzo. She calls him Dylan because they're close like that, I feel like that's how it is for us as coworkers as well. It's no, I know you as Mike, you know me as Caleb, but that's special to us because everyone else knows us as Gregan and Wave.
Yeah, I thought as well when relating Wave became a thing, it made it a lot easier to call you Caleb rather than Wave.
It's true.
Because that was quite confusing having two Waves. But let's sort of go back to the start. We met quite early in your Rocket League journey and my Rocket League journey. We were community casters before RLCS even existed. And we got to cast, we were looking at the other day, about over 7 years ago, you and I casted together in, it was April, 2015, was it? 2016, something like that?
I mean, 2016,
2016, because Rocket League came out in 2015. And we just hit it off straight away. It seemed like a natural connection when we were casting.
Yeah, that was where the Rocket League caster soulmate memes began. You and I as a strictly platonic homosexual couple. It was the vibes were so good. It was back when we had no idea what was going on, and I had an idea of how to present myself professionally and with showmanship in a landscape of stats nerds and people who had no performance background trying to cast, and you actually knew the game and were also a charismatic person, and it was wow, this is the best thing we've seen yet, and it was so much fun. That was a great cast. Yeah,
co-casting soulmates, and then we didn't ever really get to cast together. We had
one time
at the DreamHack where you were really ill and you
very sick.
Forced yourself to cast so that we could have that cast together, and in the end it was we should have just waited when you were well. But then more recently,
thank goodness we didn't.
No, I mean, because we never got a chance to.
Yeah.
And then we waited until I joined RLCS later. But then that was me on the desk and you as the host. So we kind of got that opportunity to be that duo, but as host desk analyst.
We got, and it was a very different relationship. There was people like Gibbs as well who were also permadesk with us, so it was it wasn't just you and me having a conversation about the game we love while the game's happening. That sort of thing never quite happened. Maybe at some point when you have to organize a tournament and just be what this is so that we can finally do the thing we were meant to do and finally make it happen. I'm very down.
We should try and find a team and sell this pitch to them and be hey, we'll do your team streams, we are a duo.
We to wrap it back to them, let's get Rizzo versus Athena, full team, soulmates casted by soulmates. There's some imagery diamond. There's a show in there somewhere. There's a golden egg we can make money off of.
We do have to go back to the beginning though, because I really want to dig into that early RLCS casting team. So just when everything was kicking off with RLCS, we were looking at who was going to be the casters, and unfortunately for the European guys, it was going to be in a North American studio, so there wasn't really the ability to get us on board because of visa issues and so on and so on. So this team of people who were all very green at the time. Like no one had previous work in esports really. Everyone was just part of the community, and it was like, here, deep end, you're in a studio in LA, go cast RLCS. Tell me what that was like for you guys.
It was very magical. It is funny thinking back on like they didn't have money to get European casters, and it's probably because they put the entire budget into that studio, which was easily the coolest thing that had ever happened in Rocket League at the time, despite it being this like deep royal blue, like obnoxious paint. But it was fully Rocket League themed. They had this crazy ball, and I think it's at Psyonix's headquarters now, but it used to travel with us to events. It lit up the same way as the ball. It's still actually an excellent ball statue. That was on the set, and they had a telestrator, they had the desk, they had the casting booth. Everyone always thought it was a green screen behind us. It wasn't. It was actual massive TVs projecting an image of DFH. And the set was amazing. But as somebody that had grown up doing music and around show business, and had always wanted like the show, I would describe myself as a showman first and like a nerd competitor second. I care more about the magic of being wowed by something larger than life than I do about which nerd is actually the best at the game, which is kind of a spectrum in esports. I feel like you fall on one end or the other. Getting flown to the city of magic, to the city of stars, to the city of entertainment where it all happens, and getting picked up from this little tiny airport in a Dodge Challenger and driven to this studio to see this set, to meet people I'd met online, and people were treating me like I was a celebrity to some degree, and I was like, it was a genuinely magical, singular core experience. Like that is a memory I will take with me to my grave. And getting to meet it was funny experiencing like group imposter syndrome. Like definitely every single one of us was like, we're not supposed to be here. None of us have ever been here before. The first day we went we all arrived, and then the next day Golden Boy arrived, and we all knew who Golden Boy was because we were fans of esports, but none of us had ever met him. And then he came down the elevator and like walked into the room, and there was this moment of like he just texted us that he's like in the elevator, and we're sitting at the like little cafe in the hotel, and I'm just like looking at like the corner of the elevator. I'm like, Golden Boy's about to walk around that corner. I sort of don't believe it, though. Like, I sort of don't believe that this is actually about to happen, but he is about to do it, and then he did, and it was very surreal, and he just sits down and just has lunch with us, and then we walk over to the studio, and at some point, I took a picture with him, and I was like, it was just so cool to like meet like a real caster or something like that. And he just turns to me, he's like, "You're a real caster now, Caleb." And I was like, "The fuck you mean? That is not true." I wore a flannel, like a long sleeve flannel shirt underneath my jacket for the first broadcast. Absolutely no fashion sense. Some people online would say I still have no fashion sense, but they're wrong. So it's they don't know how bad it could be.
That was honestly so good hearing that sort of reminiscence of how it was when you first got in, because I think one of the things that's been a theme of the Beyond the Game podcast is we've met a lot of people who now are very securely in work in the space, or they're content creators and have been for a while, and so this is now considered their job. But at that time for you guys, it was like, wow, I'm doing this alongside my job, or some of you were coming out of education, or you had a part-time thing, whatever it was. And for you were one of the first movers in the group who went, this is now my life. I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to commit to this, because if I don't commit, then I might miss out. Like, you were very much, this is my future. What was that decision and the process of committing full time to casting and moving to LA like for you?
It was kind of inevitable. There wasn't really much of a decision to make in the end. I will give credit to Lawler, and I think Leaf also both quit work before season 1. They like walked into their job and just submitted their 2 weeks when they were going to get flown to LA the first time. I had a really cushy kind of situation where I had a job I could take a lot of time off for, so I was able to basically maintain a job the entirety of season 1. But when season 2 rolled around and it was like, this is continuing to go, they're offering me another contract. I didn't get fired. And that contract, those two contracts combined were essentially double what I was making at the job I was working back in Texas full time. And I was then out of like PTO and vacation time. And I was like, I also, it was becoming really difficult to like do the fly in on Sunday night after the show, immediately go to 3 days of full-time work, have just Thursday to like recover and like do laundry, pack, and then jump on a plane Friday. That schedule was romantic and amazing at the time, but after 3 months of it, it was like, okay, this is getting exhausting. And why am I doing this job where I'm already making more money every year? I don't need these two sources of income. And it really was the question. I was always a person who really prioritized financial security, and I didn't like the idea of taking risks a lot. I'm a very risk-averse person in general. But when I sat there and was like, so am I going to say no to this contract because I don't like the risk? The answer was no. It was like there was just no way I could turn down the chance to do this. I would regret it the rest of my life if I said no. That was the moment where when I realized that, I was like, this is it. I'm going. I'm submitting my 2 weeks. I'm going to go pursue this dream. I still flew back and forth though for the duration of season 2. It was during season 2, the studio that was producing RLCS got the contract to create the Overwatch Winter Premiere, which was a predecessor to the Overwatch League. And they liked me on air, and they said, hey, we would love for you to come over and be the host of the Overwatch Winter Premiere if you want to get some experience doing that. I was really into Overwatch at the time. This was like right as the game came out. But they said, we don't have the budget to fly you back and forth, so you would have to move to Los Angeles. But if you move to Los Angeles, we will give you this gig. In hindsight, looking back on that, as someone who has now been in the scene for 7 years, trusting the word that these people were going to give me this gig if I moved was a very naive belief, but they did honor the contract, and I did get the gig, so it all worked out. And that was the moment. It was like, well, I guess I'm moving to Los Angeles, and I stayed on. One of the people at that studio had a living room floor I was able to crash on for 3 months until I found some roommates, and we managed to get a place, and that was it's been roommate hopping and house hopping kind of for the last 7 years now.
Yeah, I mean, what you said there about just trusting their word, that's definitely been the start of many terrible stories in esports.
It has been.
And I can tell that from experience. I've trusted the word of some people in some situations. In hindsight, I wish I hadn't. But you're now in LA, and what that's allowed you to do in esports is be in the hub of North American production. And it's the same kind of thing in Europe. We have Berlin. You know, if you want to be where all the things are, you either live in London or Berlin, right? And by being in LA, you've opened up the opportunity to work so many amazing events. Like you said, the Overwatch opportunity. You've also done small little hosting things for all sorts of different events, but the most notable one, and you can see a little bit in the background there, the Twitch Rivals logo.
Yes.
You've kind of become Mr. Twitch Rivals through being where you are, because you have the on-site studio. You also do stuff online for that. How important was it being in LA to get that gig?
Very. It was pre-pandemic. Being in LA got me a lot of work. There was a bunch of studios that were like, we need somebody. We don't have the budget to fly, or we need somebody last minute because somebody backed out and we don't have time to fly. And we need people who can just drive over to the studios. There was a bunch of, like you said, kind of like smaller things, little like ESL Collegiate Rocket League stuff before CRL existed. There was some mobile game stuff. But Twitch Rivals, again, a lot of it centers around that same studio. There was NGE, then Esports Engine. Now all of it is part of the ESL Faceit group. They made RLCS. They made that Overwatch Winter Premiere, and then they also were the first studio to make Twitch Rivals. And I got a lot of kind of random gigs through that studio. I was a lead observer for some of the like PGL or PGI like qualifiers for PUBG. And I also randomly was the observer on the very first ever Twitch Rivals show, which was a PUBG show. And so I always loved the Twitch Rivals product, the idea of, again, as an entertainer, as somebody who cares more about the entertainment side of things than about the who is actually the best and what's the best way to compete in this way. Twitch Rivals was this wonderful crossover of let's take the people who made their money and became established being entertaining and have them play the competitions against each other. I loved that idea. And I loved the Twitch community. I was doing a lot of streaming on the side. And so I was always looking for opportunities to get on Twitch Rivals. So when Carpet and Toaster Loading decided to move on to other things, they needed new people. I was one of the people they tried out, and I got that gig also because they needed somebody kind of last minute, and I lived 10 minutes from the studio. So I wasn't at the time roommates. I eventually became roommates with the project manager of the project. So like there was just a lot of like, I could just directly talk to this person, tell them, hey, I want to do this show, and then my agents did their job. But it was early on, there was a lot of advantage to being here. I would say now it's a lot less. I don't think I've gotten a single, have I? Maybe one gig post-pandemic I've gotten because I was local and they didn't have to fly me here. Mm-hmm. Most gigs now post-pandemic are online or they are big enough that they'll fly people. And so I don't actually, there have been a few events we've done in LA, but I feel like I've done more events outside of LA than I have in LA post-pandemic because they're large Rocket League lands or large Twitch Rivals lands that they want to do at a spectacle spot. And I could, in theory, live anywhere. Unfortunately, I've kind of fallen in love with Los Angeles and I like living here. So could be a lot cheaper to go somewhere else though.
Yeah, it's your home now. And I guess a big part of that is settling in and finding your people. And you were quite lucky with NGE at the time that you got on very well with the people who worked there. Like I got to hang out with you guys a lot when I was out in LA, and everyone was so lovely, and all big nerds, which is useful because then you can collaborate on nerdy projects or games or just chat about nerd culture stuff. But when we talk about Rocket League again and we go back to RLCS, I do have to ask you one question. And that is about what happened at season 2 when you called me babe live on camera after I guest appeared on the desk. We'll explain a bit of context with this. So
you need to tell the story of how you ended up on the desk.
Yeah. So there was some complications with the desk. So the schedule had changed. And the person who was meant to be on the desk didn't turn up. I think it was Carpet. They were in the green room. They didn't realize they were meant to be on the desk. And so last minute, Gibbs is panicking, trying to find someone. And he comes over to where Doomsy was sat, because at the time, Doomsy, great on camera. He was destined to be this guy who'd be on the desk anytime they could.
The caster that never was.
The caster that never was, exactly. And Gibbs was good friends with him. So it was like really easy integration. And Doomsy wasn't there. He was out in the lobby 1v1ing people or something.
He was in a green room with Carpet. They both weren't where they're supposed to be.
And so Gibbs came over and he was like, Gregan, I need you on the desk. So I got rushed onto the desk and I literally didn't get a chance to speak to Axeltos before we went live. So Axeltos went literally live on camera. Is like, hey, do you want to introduce yourself to people at home who don't know who you are? Like, very good save from him.
Classy.
Because it just sounds like he's like, hey, look, this is your chance to introduce yourself. And I'd be like, hi, I'm Gregan. And I literally introduced myself to Axeltos live on camera. And like none of you guys knew what was going on. And so you're sitting there watching this like, wait, Gregan's on camera.
Yeah. I'm for context, I as well as Shogun, I think, are in the casting booth. Which is backstage. We cannot see the desk. So we're just watching the program feed and it wipes to the desk and like, oh, there's Gregan's on camera. So continue.
Yeah. And at this point, no one had ever been a guest on the desk or anything. This was like the first of its kind, and it wasn't intentional. It was an accident. And then, after the segment, it cuts back to you and you're literally like, oh, it's so good to see Babe on the desk.
Yeah, I think I said it was so good to see Gregan on the desk. Love you, babe. And then we like transitioned to casting. I'm pretty sure that's what I said. I tacked it on to the end. Yeah, it was. There was. So I will say that the story is like, again, this is me playing into the fact that we would lean into being casting soulmates. So we would call each other babe and stuff on social media. And so I was just leaning into that. I don't, as far as I know, the end of the story is very anticlimactic. Absolutely nothing occurred of it. I didn't get any tweets about it. Not a single person talked to me about it afterwards. No one, as far as I know, no one else besides you and I cared in the slightest that it happened.
It was like the little secret language chatting to each other on camera.
It's funny that you bring up the fact, like, you're absolutely right. You were the first guest analyst on the desk, which is now a relatively common experience. And people at home would probably be surprised to know that sort of quick turnaround. Like, you're definitely the quickest turnaround from you find out you're going to be on the desk to you are on camera of anyone that's ever been a guest analyst. But it's not. It's a lot closer of a battle than people would think. There's been a lot of like, we're in the break before the next segment, realizing this person's right here. Production, can we change the nameplate in the 4th seat to this person? All right, get up here, put on the headset, and we're just gonna have you for this one segment. That happens more times than I'm gonna be honest, comfortable with, but it is a common theme now at RLCS lands.
Yeah, I think everyone's so comfortable with just chatting on the desk that it's so easy. And it's also like the uncertainty of what you're going to talk about is almost, it gets everyone engaged more in the conversation. Cause it's like
improv.
It wakes everyone up to it. They're like, right, we've got to do something different here. Like, how can we integrate them in? Like, I remember we had Fear on at one point. That was a bit more planned, but like, even that, like, we didn't plan anything we were going to talk about. He literally sat next to me, and he was like, the first thing, the wire was in the wrong place. It was like, oh, let me just move that wire for you. And it was like this whole thing. It was like so exciting and new for him that it just gave us all this energy of like, wow, this is fun. And I think that's where the fact that you can just chuck them on that quickly is due to that sort of novel experience.
Yeah, I think that the improv part of it is really is where you get the good, is like what brings out the good of people. It is interesting to me. I feel like we sometimes run into the trap of like, oh, these two teams are playing each other in the bracket. We didn't really know that until the conclusion of the last match, when X team didn't get eliminated and successfully beat the team that we thought was going to win or whatever. So now they're in this match, and this is a special story, and their manager or whatever is here, and we'd love to put him on the desk and have them talk about the team real fast. But And while I think that's a great idea in concept, I do think sometimes we run into the experience that any broadcaster will know that oftentimes your first segment on air of a show is going to be the roughest, as you kind of like get the juices flowing and kind of get back into the flow of how things work, get used to how the headset feels and how your voice sounds in your own ear and how everyone else sounds around you. You're not familiar with any of that stuff. It's a very new environment. And I think oftentimes in those moments, what we end up doing is we throw somebody on 10 minutes before the segment starts, and we get their worst segment, and then we kick them off because now it's over. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like maybe my standards have just gone up over the years. My standard for a good desk is no longer that we didn't crash and burn. It's that we actually were genuinely entertaining. So it's hard because like it is really special to have those guests on. I think it definitely benefits. Everybody benefits. They benefit. We benefit. The people at home benefit when they have a little bit more heads up though. So which is something we've actually been working on RLCS as well. Is like a little bit more pre-planning in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, it's also for them, making them feel as comfortable as possible, because ultimately we want them to shine. And I think that example of someone like a CJ, like not every player or manager or coach who comes on is going to be like CJ, where they just naturally come on and have a great time. Everyone's got their own levels. So like being able to bring the best out of everyone is important. Speaking of which, you said about the desk and like your expectations of a desk. Now, this is something I've spoken a bit with some friends, like ex-guest on the podcast, Gio. I know you know Gio as well. Yeah. I spoke to her a lot about it because one of the things I felt like we had in Rocket League, and I assume you still do. I'm going to be honest, I don't watch as much RLCS anymore now that I'm not on it.
Understandably.
But one of the things that we had last season was I felt like the desk was innovative. I think straight from Stockholm, when we had that first LAN back and we got to be in person again, there was something special about the desk. And then adding T-Bates in there, I mean, Daz at Stockholm was so special. You know, the relationship with CJ now involved, and Gibbs and everyone, and even having you as the host, and the way you facilitated the desk. I want to know what to you makes a desk special, because I feel like we all created something in our head about the desk to make it that next level beyond just don't make it bad, right? Yeah.
It's for me, the biggest things that make like it part of, I'm gonna kind of recontextual, or like kind of re-ask your question in a different way that I think will help get at the point I feel like is best to be made here, which is like, what is the point of a desk? Like, why is it here? Is it just to tell people things that most of them already can glean from the graphics that are on the screen of who's about to play, where we are at in the bracket. What is the reward for winning? Like you don't need 4 people, maybe one. One host can do all of that by themselves. Why do you have a panel of people? And I think the natural answer people give is, well, it's to give context, it's to give stories, it's to explain to people the details of the map and to give a preview of what's about to happen. I think is kind of what people view it as a desk, and I think that is kind of the conceit of the desk. It's like when you watch it and you tune in, like those are the characters they're playing. They're playing the analyst. Like, I'm going to tell you with my expert opinion of what's about to happen here. But what really, I think, in my mind, as I've watched esports, as I've watched sports, and I've watched other analyst desks, the thing that continues to jump out to me is that the point of a desk is to tell the fans of both teams that their team has a chance relative to the level of chance they have. But a desk should never just say this team is always gonna win. There's no way the other team's gonna win unless it's like really one-sided and make it like really special. I had dinner with some of the Valorant team yesterday, and they were talking about the LCQ that just concluded, and Crew managed to go 0-9 at the start and then win the LCQ. And there's this great clip of Sideshow. As someone, I forget who it was, someone on the desk picked LCQ to win it, and he's like, you think LCQ is going to win it? The 0-9 team is going to win? You're crazy. And it's like, that's great because they were 0-9. Like, it sets up this, like, a crazy, preposterous story so that when it happens, now we've got this great clip of the team saying that, of him saying that, like, kind of set up this contrast here. But for the fans of the other team, like, I think it's important that both are there. It's important that I feel like I'm kind of getting lost in the story here. It's important that there be the fans of a given team get given a reason why their team has a chance. That's whenever I've tuned into an analyst desk and I'm a fan of a team, that's all I'm listening for. All I'm listening for is you, football commentator, tell me why TCU has a chance to win this football game that's about to happen. I've done your job. I know you're just making stuff up. I know you're not you're not even necessarily telling me how you actually feel. I don't care. I just want to hear that my team has a chance. And I think that having one person represent one side, having other people represent the other side, having them argue about it to the appropriate degree, if it is a massive David versus Goliath, having someone go, there's no way David beats Goliath, is good. It's great for the show, and then it gives the person defending David the opportunity to really give the reasons, no, they're gonna beat him because of this, this, and this, and then when it happens, oh my goodness, is that amazing for the viewer. Is that like, what a massive experience, you know? And then also giving them things to like kind of latch onto in a match. There's a lot of players, a lot of things going on, and you could be like, what is all happening here? If you tell them like, watch Vatira versus Zen in this matchup. Watch the greatest player alive versus the guy gunning for his title. When those two are going head to head, when Vatira's in net and Zen's in the air with the ball, who wins? Like, forget the rest of the Rocket League match. Just watch that. That's the other part of the desk. Is like take the complex game, break it down into bite-sized chunks for the people at home who don't watch it every day. So, yeah, I think I answered your question.
No. That was perfect. And I think one of the things to add into that is to avoid gimmicks and cliches, because like you said, everyone has seen enough desks now that they've seen the classic things that people will do. And like, as the host, one of the things that you can do is be the one who votes for the team that's likely to lose, right? But if you just do that every time, it then becomes boring and gimmicky.
For sure.
So you have to find a way to do it in a way that's engaging, right? And that's where you can have some fun with it. You can like change the tempo of it, all that kind of stuff. Or, you know, like sometimes you can even go all 5 for one team, but then like have a little joke about how like we're all going to look so stupid if this team wins because there's still a chance. You know, like there's so many ways you can mix it up. And I think one of the problems you've got with it, and this is across all of esports, not even just in broadcast, is not many people are doing things through their own judgment. They're doing things by mimicking other people's ways in which they do them. And I think the desk is an example of that, in particular in a broadcast, because it's not prioritized. It's not seen as the glamorous bit. It's seen as the filler bit. And so a lot of people just replicate other desks. And so you get this like same, like you can like just hit the story points of like, this team has been working really hard. This team's also been working really hard. Last time they played, this happened. I think it's going to be this team because they're in form right now. Wow, I'm going to go for this team because none of you guys have voted for it. Boom, that's the desk, right? And so like one of the big things in Rocket League that you guys do now, and we did back when I was on the desk, was the keeping the desk each time so someone would want to tune in and make sure they saw it. And like there was so many, like think of how many clips came out of the desk. Like I think of like the Stumpy standing up against Dazarin, like jerseys being chucked around, people having jerseys underneath, like getting Blue Wall involved, like all of that kind of stuff. Like there's so many highlight moments on the desk in a place that is typically without highlights, right?
Yeah, it is very much this is the thing we do so that we don't just show commercials for 20 minutes in between the games, because we know that everyone's here to watch the games. But I think it's a really dangerous space for talent in esports to fall into that complacency of my job on the desk is just to be safe and just to look like a caster and sound like a caster and have it give the sports aesthetic without actually putting any substance into it. I think esports a lot actually has fallen into the trap of just trying to maintain an aesthetic of professionalism without actually catering to the actual substance that's happening. And I think casters in general do a good job. Casters, the people that are actually commenting the game as it's happening, they are always kind of conscious of how do I tell the story, right? That's the job. That's what they think about. But desk and interview and graphics and stuff like that can easily fall into like, we just want to kind of like have it look good and not actually say anything meaningful. And the thing about saying meaningful things is you have to take risks, and so many casters, especially because they're afraid of losing their job and they believe that if they predict the wrong team, that is going to be a judgment of how good of an analyst they are terrified to say anything that could possibly be seen as wrong. And to give a shout out to T-Bates, I think this is the one thing he does so well and has really helped innovate. You mentioned innovation last year. One of the things he really helped innovate was say what's entertaining, say what's provocative, not for the sake of being provocative, but for the sake of the show, for the sake of telling both sides of the story meaningfully. Somebody has to absolutely defend David. Someone has to say why David could win and mean it, not be like, I think Goliath's gonna win, but if David were able to do this, and this, then that would probably that would work, right? That's not. If I'm a David fan, I'm like, cool. All I'm hearing you say is that I'm losing, right? I need somebody to say this is their power. This is the thing they're gonna do, right? Because it's a setup that makes a payoff that is really impactful, and you have to be brave. You have to be willing to be wrong, and I feel like a lot of people in esports are terrified of being wrong.
Yeah, and in particular now with the NA David Goliath situation where NA is like the David in that story a lot of the time, and T-Bates has that kind of NA bias intrinsically built into his character that he kind of puts on. I think it's like the way I used to describe it is when, just to highlight me and him together on the desk, obviously with Gibbs and CJ, they all play their own roles. You play the control and the flow of the desk. That's the host's role. Always an important part, not to overpower. I think that's one thing people don't realize that you do as a host is if people don't realize you're doing anything, then you're doing the right thing. Because the less you talk, sometimes the better, especially when there's like 5 people on a desk. But then like that's where you have your moments where you bring the control and order and like the bringing them into the segment, etc. Anyway, I could talk about how great you are all day, but
thank you.
With T-Bates, he was like the emotional North American, like how he felt was like the kind of like the way you describe it was like it was all about how he felt. He didn't care what other people thought. He didn't care what things said. It was all like emotional emotional analysis, right? And on the other end, I was very logical, very stats driven, very analytically minded, and also European. So we had that sort of juxtaposition between the two of us. Yeah. And then with the desk, you've got Gibbs, who's very structure focused. He's very like by the numbers, and so that works quite well with T-Bates having those two different roles. And he's very history driven, right, Gibbs? Yeah. And then you've got CJ, who's like got that whole like comedic way of looking at things, and like you know he's quite relaxed with everything, you know, and so like you've got the uptight T-Bates moments with the relaxed CJ moments, so they all work well with each other. So having those things to bounce around on our desk has always been such a vital part of that dynamic, I think.
Yeah. There's also a pedigree that comes with the people you just named of like thinking about when the desk is you, me, Bates, Gibbs, and CJ. everybody except for the host has actual competitive experience of some sort in some different roles, especially CJ and T-Bates as former players at the high levels. CJ, multiple world championship competitor, is while he says things in a comedic way, he knows what he's talking about, and that pedigree does two things. One, it convinces the viewers that what he says he knows, and two, it convinces him that he knows what he's talking about, which just gives him an extra edge of confidence behind his words that somebody who is strictly an analyst or strictly a commentator comes in and they're like, there is always that little lie in that voice in the back of your mind as a caster that says, if I really knew what I was talking about, I'd be able to do it at a better level and I'd be able to compete in some way. And the fact that I never was a even bubble player in my game means that I don't know what I'm talking about. There's not that doubt with any of you that are on that desk at that moment. So I think even Bates, while you look at him and you say he's got his heart on his sleeve, and he's making predictions from heart. Like, he plays this game at a very high level and understands the game well, and he's confident because he genuinely believes what he's saying. I think a lot of people think that Bates is putting it on for show, and there are times when he will do what is best for the show and maybe not say what he actually thinks, but generally the benefit of Bates is that he does believe what he's saying, and it really comes across on air. I will also say, though, I was thinking about this with Bates, because we're always like, oh, he's so NA biased, all you NA people are so biased, but us Europeans, we're just analytical. We just like to look at the game and really judge it based on value and character. We'll give credit to NA when there's time to give credit to NA. Listen, you're just as biased in Europe. You've just been the Goliath the whole time. So it's super easy. You just be like, I'm not biased. I just like good teams. It just happens all the European teams are good. If it was flipped, roles would be completely different.
So the other Europeans were, okay, I was slightly biased, a little bit biased, but there was, in an online rate your take moment, in the winter split last season, I said a take of, I think North America will be dominant at the winter major. And that's except for Queso, that's what ended up happening, right? Because by analyzing the gameplay, I could see that North America was ahead of Europe. And that, so there was moments where, like, I remember being in that call and everyone in that call, like Johnny, I think it was Johnny, Cole, and Shogun. It might have been Stumpy, but they were all just like, nah, you're chatting a load of rubbish, all this kind of stuff. But I think it does. That's where you're right with the Europeans. There's been times where they've definitely acted like, oh yeah, we're so much smarter, and it's actually just that Europe's just generally better. So. Yeah,
you're just the teams you like are good, and that makes you sound smart. Congratulations, well done. I have absolutely no faith that our dear friend Stumpy Goblin, if Europe was in the bin some season, wouldn't have a massive amount of English copium, and it would be wonderful. It'd be a wonderful little reversal of roles.
It would be. It'd be beautiful. So we've spoken a lot about your journey with your career, but I want to talk a little bit about some of your stuff you do outside of your career. And I think there's two big things that stand out to me, and I'm sure you could add more to this list, but one of the things that's always stood out to me is you're a very passionate person. Everything you do, you like take it to the max where you can. And the two things that stand out to me are your music and your car.
Thank you.
We'll start off with maybe there's something else I didn't know about that you're equally as passionate about, but tell me about music. Where did it start? And what is your musical I want to say, like, accomplishment level? Like, do you do grades? Have you performed? All that kind of stuff.
Music was the first love. Music was the thing I cared about long before I knew what video games were. My mother was a pianist. My dad was a guitar player. And my dad was a worship leader once I was in kind of 8 years old and up. He led worship at our church. But I started on piano when I was 4. We had a piano in the house. Mom started teaching us. I, at one point, when I was like 6, tried violin for like 6 weeks, did not take to it. And then I went back to piano until I was 9 or 10 when I picked up guitar, and then I played guitar all through college. I went to school for music theory and composition, and I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts doing that. We're playing guitar and singing in the choirs. I also picked up vibraphone while I was at college to play in the front ensemble of the marching band. I performed in 2-3 choirs while I was in college. and they were all wonderful. The choir, I genuinely miss choir. I want to find a way to get back to singing with that group. It's a wonderful little activity. But there was my family was blessed with a nice sound system in our living room growing up, and I would put CDs in the 5-disc CD changer and then just like sit at the point between the two speakers and just listen to music. I would sit and find sounds I liked on the piano and then just sit there and just bang them like over and over again. And it was genuinely for music for me is very much an intrinsic love of sound and vibration. The like just sitting and playing specific intervals or specific chords are very satisfying. I could just sit there and just some days when I'm like tired and stressed, or even days when I'm feeling great and I'm just bored, or I'm not bored, I'm just like specifically have an appetite for it, I'll just sit at my little station here and just play. I'm not recording anything. I'm not trying to work on a track. I'm just putting sounds into my ears and enjoying the way that they bounce around. Music for me is very much about music. It's not like for some people, music is about emotion, or it's about expressing meaning. It's about poetry plus. It's taking the words that people are saying and putting it to the sounds, and the sounds are wonderful, but the words are really what they care about. I'm very much on the other end of the spectrum. The sounds are important. The first time, if you send me a song and say, hey, listen to this song, almost never will I, the first time around, catch the meaning of any of the words. I'm just listening to the sounds, and then the second time through, I can kind of like pay attention to the message that's being given. But I did a lot of ensemble stuff. I had my senior year of college, I had a band, and we played songs that I wrote, and we put on a few small shows around campus, never anything really big. But then post college, I got involved with the blues scene in Fort Worth, Texas, and played rhythm guitar for some, and like kind of like alt solo guitar for some blues groups and some pickup nights. I mixed sound at the blues bars, and when I graduated college, the job that I took and then left to go casting, when I was talking about earlier, I was a stage manager for the School of Music. I would set up ensembles for practice and rehearsals. We would do the staging, the lighting, the in-house front of sound, and the recording and broadcasting over YouTube streaming of operas, ballets, senior recitals, master classes and workshops, and just anything that came through and rented stage space on the stage, we were involved with in some way. So I got to experience a lot of different performances that way, and then the skills I built there, I would go and those blues bars I was playing in, I would also moonlight mixing sound for them on like off days, and then there was a few other little like groups in the area that I would show up and be their extra set of hands at the music festival or the golf tournament they were running the stage for in the area. Mm-hmm. So a lot of different avenues of experience. I originally wanted to write video game soundtracks. That was what I went to college for, to try and get into. And if you go to my Twitch, there's a few different places you can get to my SoundCloud. If you Google Wavepunk SoundCloud, it'll come up, and you can check out some of the music that I've written on there. There's a pretty wide variety of video game music to singer-songwriter stuff to techno, whatever. But yeah, music was the first love, and I'm kind of heading back that direction.
Yeah. I mean, that's the advantage you've got, is that you can always go back to that after esports, or like transition and do 50-50, etc. I was going to say, we'll have to get you to listen to our jingle and see what you think of the jingle.
Sure.
And we can do that. We can do that afterwards. So,
okay.
Actually, this is a good moment to talk about that. We'll get onto your car in a bit, because I do want to talk about your Mustang. But this is the first online version of the podcast, and one of the main reasons for that is so that we can get people like yourself on in North America. And actually, you were going to be one of the first guests we had on, because we were planning to get this all set up before the London Major, so that you could come along and do it there.
Yeah.
Because I always really wanted you to be one of the earlier guests on it. But through this, it means that we can do this podcast, and we can do the content that we're planning to do afterwards. We got so many options of what we can do with it. So the way we run the podcast, we record the podcast, and afterwards we do some fun shorts. So that's going to be like what people see on social media and stuff like that. But now I just realized we can do so many crazy things now, because we've got this whole like overlay thing. So so there's some stuff to Harry to think about. We could do like a soundtrack guessing quiz and all sorts of stuff like that, right?
You do like a tier list.
Yeah.
Like, just put up a tier list and have to like together put the things up of what I don't know what the tier list would be of, but that'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be a cool idea.
Yeah, we could just do so many like little interactive things live on here. But Just a little food for thought. It's also I want to hear from you guys if you're listening now. Let us know what you think of the online version. It helps with Wavepunk having like one of the best microphones possible and sounding amazing. That definitely makes it better, because when you get a guest on who's not got that tech, then it might be a bit different. But right now, this seems pretty perfect, especially because the latency in theory would be quite high, because you're like 200 ping away or something, right?
Yeah, we're like thousands and thousands of miles from each other. The internet is crazy cool.
I mean, speaking of cool things, tell me about your car.
It is a 2021 Mustang GT Performance Pack 1 on Fortune Auto 500 coilovers with Ferrata CM1s wrapped in Falcon FK510s. No performance mods. It has tint, wrap, underglow. That's about it. So pretty minimal mods as far as the modding community. If you're not a car person, what I just said was a bunch of gibberish. But I drive a Mustang. I've got custom wheels. I've got custom suspension, and then I've got some cosmetic stuff. It is the fanciest, most expensive thing I own, and I enjoy it dearly. It is also a huge part of what kind of helped me acclimate and feel at home in Los Angeles, and part of the reason why I am less interested in moving.
You got your little Mustang crew. Yeah.
I don't hang out with that group as much anymore, but yes, I wasn't a club the last 2 years, and I'm kind of looking. I actually have a Discord for esports. If there are any esports professionals or people who are active in the industry who are interested in cars, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. I have a Discord I'm running where I'm trying to get as many esports car people together as possible, and hope that we can get kind of like an online car club with hopefully eventually, inevitably, a few like in-person meets. Which we have already kind of had one of. It was it was a total of 2 members, me and one other guy, who hung out and did a repair on one of the parts of my car. But yeah, cars are a beautiful, wild piece of human technology, and a fun crossover too with the Rocket League. It is part of why I loved Rocket League in the first place, was cool, bright colored machines. So yeah, I love the car scene here.
Yeah, I mean, that's how groups start, is you have 2 people who are like, we should get more people along. So maybe that was the start of something there. But yeah, I guess the question with that is, you know how I said you got a lot of passions and you're always quite a passionate person about things. With the car, it's meant that you've got into engineering, I'm guessing, how to make it all work a bit better. But also like photography as well. I feel like you go out and do, like, I mean, from my point of view, you look like you're doing really cool pictures that are like really professional. Like, was that something you had to learn, or did you just kind of, like every modern person, take your phone along, take a picture and be like, oh, look at me, I'm a professional photographer?
Yeah. No, photography was wonderfully like exciting to me growing up. I had a friend who was a former professional photographer, and she had a really nice camera, and so like as a teenager I would our family would go to her house, and she would just let me just take the camera out in the backyard and like do things with it. And I was, anytime I could get my hands on like a real camera, especially digital cameras, I was like, where you could take the picture and immediately look at it and like get that instant feedback of like how to make it better. I was so excited. That was so much fun. The moment phone cameras got decent, I lost interest in big cameras. Like just having the ability to pull it out and just snap the photo and like play around with it there was plenty enough to satisfy that itch for me. So I am like a phone photographer by trade, I guess. I own a DSLR somewhere, but I genuinely don't know where it is, and I've tried to sell it, and the one time I went into the store to sell it, the guy who would do the evaluations and buy it for me wasn't there, and I would have to come back the next day, and that was like 3 years ago, so we'll get it sold eventually. I did part of like buying the car and being like, I want to take pictures with the car, I want to get good at taking pictures of the car, was a like, let's regularly, weekly, go find a place, take some pictures, have them be bad, go home, try and see if we can figure out how to make them better next time around. And over the years got good at figuring out what made the shots look good, what made the shots look bad, finding out the power of editing, and how just even like color correction can genuinely make me go from this looks like a picture taken on a phone to this is a nice picture. But I did a bit of research as well, like, you know, looking up YouTube videos on like how to do car photography, how to specifically shoot Mustangs, learning about lenses and apertures and lighting situations, how to find a good spot, how to not ask for permission and just show up and wait for the cops to kick you out, but you got like 10 photos before they showed up, so you're good. And like, what are they gonna? They're not gonna throw you in jail for just setting your car in a parking garage you weren't supposed to be in. So it was a lot of lessons along the way that have gotten me to a place of feeling like, oh, I know how to take a picture of this car. And more or less, though, finding out that the things that I really didn't like about the car in the end was just the car itself. And like when I would look at the picture of my car and I look at the picture of their car, I'd be like, it's the wheel gap here. That's what's bothering me about this. There's no way to put the camera in a way that changes that. They just have a better fitment than I do. I need to go get new wheels, and then we're spending more money. So,
well, it's a little project for you. It's your little project. But yeah, I think the one thing I'm excited to do is when I come back to LA is go out on a ride in that car with you, because I know how much love has gone into that car.
Is one of my favorite things is taking people up into the mountains above LA, where there's these wonderful windy roads, some of the best roads you can drive really anywhere in the world. Beautiful views, wonderful weather, and it is the closest thing if you're a car person and you enjoy playing like Forza, especially Forza Horizons, that kind of like MMO, wide open, you're just driving around, you run into other people who are driving around. Like going up into those mountains is the closest thing I think you're ever going to get to experiencing that in real life, because you have this like large population of car people here in Los Angeles, and they will just regularly, daily, there's a group of us that just go up there, not together coordinated wise, but just very organically. Well, last time I went up there with a friend, we were very quickly in kind of a tandem with a Porsche 911 and a Toyota BRZ or a Toyota 86 behind us, and just canyon carving through, driving through a cloud, coming out the clouds right here as you're on the side of the cliff, and then you're listening to like Bon Jovi or something like that. I took Cole and Stumpy came out one time, and me and a friend took them up there, and Stumpy looked at me and he's like, I'm having trouble believing this is a free experience I'm getting to do. That this is not a paid like tourist attraction. This is just something you just do on the daily, and it is a genuinely uniquely special experience. If you ever get the chance to go drive up Highway 2 in Los Angeles, definitely take your friend up on it.
Well, that sounds like a date. Co-casting soulmate.
Absolutely, let's do
it. We did miss out one thing in the podcast, which we do with every single guest, and that is ask them what their top 5 games of all time are.
Top 5 games of all time.
And so typically people will look at games that have been important in their career, important in their life, like formative games, but also just games that they experienced and love the experience of. They could be nostalgic games. But yeah, typically people will go for the ones that are most influential in their life.
Yeah, no, definitely number 1 is Rocket League. I mean, it's the best $20 I've ever spent. Definitely most bang for my buck. Cannot be argued with. There's no way to change that. So Rocket League is definitely number 1. The Halo would be the next big one that comes to mind.
Which Halo?
Kind of all like Halo CE was the first one that I like played, and like it was the game that kind of introduced me to gaming. I was always a very good kid, but video games was the one place where my parents would give me rules and I would just break them. My parents told me, no, we don't want Halo in the house. And then just one day I somehow forgot and just went and bought Halo and then was just playing it with my siblings. And again, asking forgiveness instead of permission, they kind of just threw their hands up and like, I guess it's in the house now. And it was playing it at friends' houses, standing in the corner with a sniper, just like staring at the ceiling, spinning in circles because I didn't know what I was doing, and having a blast. It was like kind of the real beginning for me of a love of games. Playing Halo 3 at a friend's house, split screen on Xbox Live, was like the peak of my gaming experiences for many years. So yeah, Halo would be up there.
I'm gonna have to push you to give me one of them though, because we do not let people
one.
We do not let people have series. They must say a game from the series.
I'm gonna go. They're all good, but I'm gonna give the edge to Halo Reach because it was the game when I graduated freshman year of college. That summer, my family left town, and it was just me and my dad at home the entire summer. I was working as a roofing job, putting roofs on houses, and then also working part-time at a ranch with a friend, and the ranch owner's eldest son was really into Halo, so I would go to his place at 7 a.m. We would put up a fence till about 2 p.m. and then we would play Halo Reach in his room with coffee until I felt like leaving. And then every day I wasn't at his place, when I got home from the roofing job, we would play from like 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. or whatever. It was wonderful. I played so much Halo Reach. It was the first time I was ever in like a clan, first time I ever signed up for like game battles. We sucked, but that was like my real introduction to me personally integrating with esports in a way other than a fan. So Halo Reach, Rocket League, Halo Reach. I'm gonna give the next one to Celeste. Okay. I do not play many single player games. I definitely don't play many platformers. But on Twitch Rivals, we did a Celeste speedrun. It was the first speedrun show we did. It was a very short, like 2.5 hour show, short by Twitch Rivals standards. But I played the game once through. I'd watched Final Carpet play the game, I think on the way to Amsterdam. He was playing it on his Switch for Season 2 of Rocket League. And I was like, this game's really pretty. But again, I don't like platformers, so I probably wouldn't play that game very much. Then we were doing the show, and I was like, I want to do a good job on the show, so I blitzed through the game as quickly as I could. Like in like 14 hours, I played through the entire story so that I had a frame of reference when I was watching the speedrunners. And it made the show so much better to have like played through it and like gone this grueling task, and then to watch these people just fly through it in under half an hour. And then at some point, I don't know, I kept kind of coming back to it. It was one of the games I had on the Switch. It was a game I would travel with and I could play. And I started to try and 100% the game. And for many years, it was my rehearsal game that I would just slowly try to work my way through. The story of the game is just, if you've never played Celeste, it's about a young woman trying to climb a mountain to prove to herself she can do it, and along the way she has to confront the personification of her self-doubt and anxiety and panic attacks. It's such a great like minimalistic story about mental health that I think is relatable to anybody. Very playable, just to like get the whole story. The value of the story is not difficult for anyone else to do, but just challenging enough to be fun. The way you play the platforming style is very pixel perfect. There's none of that like acceleration stuff that like kind of Mario style platformers have. It makes the game very satisfying to get good at, and then it has tons of auxiliary content. If you are interested in 100% of the game gets very hard very quickly. I'll say I'm at, like, if you're a RuneScape player, which will be the fourth game on my list, if you're a RuneScape player, you know that getting from level 1 to level 98 is halfway to getting to the full mastery. The level 98 to 99 is the other half of the game. Celeste is the same way with its with 100% of the game. The final chapter of the game is easily just as hard as the entire game, or more. Like, it takes it. The speed run of the whole game is under half an hour now. The speed run last time I checked of just the final chapter, so like when I say the whole game, I mean not this final chapter. The speed run of just the final chapter is, I think, 18 minutes. So it's like crazy how much. I have not even attempted the final chapter yet. It's still on my list. So I'm at like 98% on 100% of that game.
Oh, that sounds amazing. You've almost like sold it to me. Like, I want to go and play this game now because
I will buy it for you. I will absolutely buy it for you if you promise to play it. Like, okay. That offer stands for until at least 100 people take me up on it. Like, that offer stands.
Anyone watching right now, DM Wavepunk and he'll buy it for you.
You have to play it though. You have to play it.
Okay, maybe I'll hold off until I've got a rainy day. But then next up, you said RuneScape at number 4.
Yeah, RuneScape was first MMO. A huge part of why I like gaming is the kind of ability to escape from real life and get into a world that feels different than my own, right? And there's the MMO aspect is a really huge selling point for me. If I feel like the people I'm talking to are actual people who aren't just going to go through prescripted lines of dialogue, the game is so much more immersive for me. And RuneScape was the first time I experienced that. It's so funny thinking back on the memories of the game and how much more vivid and colorful the world was to me than it actually was. And how the fun of meeting friends, of like being betrayed, of betraying people, of trying to bait people up to the little the temple just west of the Goblin Village and tell people to take the potion because they can sell it for 40,000 coins, and then they pick it up and all the priests kill them, and then you just loot the shit off their bodies. Like, that sort of stuff was so cool to me, but the idea of going out in the wilderness was terrifying to me. It was such a real world. And I will go back to it every once in a while. I'll download old school RuneScape on my phone and just kind of go relive that moment. And it set me on a path towards other games. The fifth one, there's definitely a few. There's a few that are good nominees, and I'm not sure how to pick between them. But I'm probably gonna go with Elite Dangerous, which is also in that MMO vein. You can play a single player if you want to, but just space games, science fiction is a huge like area of escapism for me, and specifically being a pilot. Which if you're there's common themes through all these games that if you pick up on them lead me to Rocket League being the perfect game for me. But like I would almost call people who are good at playing Rocket League pilots before I would call them drivers, even though they're in cars. It is much more of an air game than anything else. So aerial combat is so cool to me, like X-Wings and TIE Fighters. Star Wars Squadrons was a huge game that I really enjoyed when it came out. But yeah, Elite Dangerous is such a special... It has that terrible... terrifying maw of the openness of space that you really get a sense of how huge the universe is and how huge the galaxy is, while also getting to enjoy the beauty of it, and feel the satisfaction of of what feels like and I'm actually having to just be a truck driver from spaceport to spaceport, or try and go zoom between canyons on a planet's surface somewhere. It's a wonderful world. It's definitely one of the games I have the most hours in.
That's what No Man's Sky could have felt like, and more.
No Man's Sky is also on the list. I've got like 60 hours in No Man's Sky, so not a ton, but it's and I will also give a shout out that No Man's Sky has gotten way better.
Yeah, they just had a terrible launch. It's that classic thing. Like same thing with Pokemon Go, right? Like now it's such a good game, but because the base mechanic of it was so good on its own, now the base mechanic has lost its novelty. People aren't playing it as much. But like the game now is so much more engaging, so much more fun. I think it's the same with so many games that are getting updated now. Like we don't have as many games on release that are unbelievable because developers are much more focused on getting it out there to start the process of developing it and updating it, which is a bit of a shame.
It is.
But that's a pretty good top 5 list there. I think Halo comes up all the time. Like, to be fair, Halo 3 is typically the one people go for. That's more of the like traditional one.
Halo Reach is it's really hard for me to pick between the original 3. And it would have been one of the original 3 if I hadn't put in just clearly the most hours in the Halo Reach.
It's the timing of it, right? Like the fact that you were doing that in person, and like that's such a big factor when it comes to our understanding and love of games. Like it's the same thing with like Mario Kart, right? Like I love Mario Kart as a game, but I don't. It's not actually the game. Like I don't think of any of the individual games as being better than the other ones. It's always the company that you're playing it with. And one of my most fond memories is of DS playing it on a coach ride with a bunch of other people. You know?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean you saying DS made me think of Super Smash and how important that game is to me. And like it was for me, like it had always been around. I played it on, GameCube with friends, but didn't know what I was doing. Smash for me really began with Smash for the Wii U, which also had a variant, a copy of it. It was ported to the DS, and I had a roommate that had 2 DSs, and he just lent me one. And he's like, pick a character and get good at it. And so that was a huge thing. And like, there's something about like the kind of like the ethos of Mario Kart games that while the game varies from title to title, there is that kind of like core feeling that when you play, you're like, yes, this is Mario Kart. That's how I feel about Halo too. Like there are certain games of Halo where that was less strong than others, and honestly, maybe Halo Reach is where it's the weakest. But that Bungie style of FPS is such a huge. It's the core of my gaming experience and what I will go back to, and I'll boot up Halo Infinite and just shoot people and just like vibe out and be like, this is the Halo game I always wanted to have. I'm glad it's here. Wish it was a little more popular. Wish this ecosystem around it was a little bit better supported. But the core gameplay, really good, really fun. Mario Kart's a great shout as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, lovely top 5 list there. And I guess just to close out the podcast, we always want to find out what people are up to next. I know Worlds is coming up. I'll see you there. We're going to have some exclusive Beyond the Game content there, hoping to do some podcasts at RLCS. Unfortunately, you're struck off the list of people I want to interview now because we've done this one here.
Yes,
but you would have been top of that list if we didn't do this. But
I have a whole interview all to myself already.
So we'll be seeing each other at Worlds. But what else is on the future of Wavepunk right now?
I am trying to get some sort of musical project out the door for people to enjoy. As soon as possible. If I can get an EP of some sort out by the end of the year, I'll be very happy. So that's what I've been getting a lot of my time is working on music. There hasn't been Outside of Rocket League, I'm not doing. There's not a ton of gigs coming down the lines for me, but I've been doing some stuff with the Esports Awards, and I'm excited to see what happens with that moving forward, as well as some fun projects in the Rocket League community, more on the community side of things that hopefully we'll get to enjoy together. So. Not a ton of like big spicy announcements around the corner to give at the moment, but very, very blessed to be where I'm at, and happy to have the opportunities I do.
Yeah, I mean, the music side of things, I'm excited for that. Maybe we'll have a Rocket League or an RLCS LAN theme that will be done by Wavepunk and Turtle, or
that'd be fun.
Wavepunk and Athena or something like that. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I would love that.
But the last question that we ask all of our guests to close out the podcast, and knowing you as a very deep thinker and someone who is very, very smart with the way you process your emotions and concepts, I think this is going to be one of those where I'm expecting a good answer out of you here. So no pressure.
Oh no, the bar is high.
What does gaming mean to you?
What does gaming mean to me? I primarily gaming is about people. Gaming is about connecting with other people. It's about the whether it's teamwork or the escapism we were talking about with MMOs earlier, and feeling like I'm getting to do something that I cannot do in real life. That escapism that esports is about, being able to compete in ways that are impossible in the real world, right? All of sports is kind of, we're trying to accomplish a goal, and the rules of sports are, how close am I allowed to get to killing my opponent to try and achieve my goal? And the rules are not very close at all. Please don't even hurt them. In esports, we say, no, just kill them. Just demo them. Just shoot them in the head, right? It gives us ways to compete that we cannot compete in real life. And yet, at the end of the day, none of that matters. I think what it really comes down to is the people, the teamwork, the getting to sit alongside your friends and establish, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that, and person 3 is going to achieve the win condition. And I feel such pride watching them achieve the win condition because of the stepping stone I gave them by doing my part before that. The moments of driving down the highway in Forza Horizons and having 2 cars come up next to me and us try to like weave together perfectly, or one initiates a race and we just race to the other side of the continent to see who can get there the fastest, and then flash our lights at each other and we're gone and we never see each other again. The moments in Marvel Snap of both playing the card at the same time and doing the Spider-Man pointing exclamation point emote at each other of like, wait, you did the same thing I just did. It's not about the card. It's about those moments. It's about community, and it's about people.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Caleb.
Thank you.